Hey everyone, what's going on? I know it's been a while since I made a video, but like I said in the last video, I'm just trying to finish writing this book that I've been working on for a long time. And once I get that done, I will start making more videos, hopefully. But what I'm going to talk about in this video is the exact thing that I am writing about in this book. It's the biggest part of the book. I'm talking about how I'm following patterns that exist in my own life and how they sync up to the mainstream media stories. And yesterday, the main story was that this guy named Rayshard Brooks got murdered by the police at the Wendy's in Atlanta, Georgia. And then they later burnt down the Wendy's, right? And if you look at my blog posts here, if you go back to June 12th, which is the same day he supposedly got shot, but this was at 2:06 in the morning. So, about 20 hours before he got shot, I blogged how Wendy's was absolutely important to whatever's going on with this big narrative with George Floyd and so on. Because George Floyd, he got killed in Minneapolis, which is the Twin Cities. And he got killed during the time of Gemini. And the astrological sign is a twin, right? Gemini twins, right? The Twin Cities. That's why they told us that the NBA player Steven Jackson was George Floyd's twin, even though they're not really twins. They call him his twin, right? And if you go back and look at my stuff from the year 2017 and use hindsight, you'll find that I talked about Wendy's all summer. Wendy's was really important. And the owner of Wendy's just so happens to be, he was named Dave Thomas. And the word Thomas comes from Thomas from the Bible or whatever, right? Thomas, and it means twins, right? That's where we get Doubting Thomas from. And after this George Floyd thing, so there was the James Scurlock guy that got killed in Omaha, Nebraska right after George Floyd, right? And when they canceled the TV show called Cops, we just found out they canceled the TV show Cops in light of all this. This is important to Wendy's because Cops actually is famous for one of their camera guys getting killed at the Wendy's in Omaha, Nebraska. And that same Wendy's in 2017, I had went there on the 261st day of the year, and I had a band gig that day. It was my first ever band gig with my band that I'm in now called Punch Clock Martyrs. And the address that we played at, Nelson's Creek Drive, that equals 261. My drummer's name, that's who we practiced at his house. His name equaled 261. And then our first gig was on the 261st day of the year at the Down Under Lounge. The Down Under Lounge equals 261. And I hadn't ate all day because I had to work or something. And I went to this Wendy's and I just bought like something off the dollar menu and it came to $2.61. And I was like, there's got to be something to this, And I noticed that my drummer, his name in gematria, it just so happens to equal the same as Minnesota Twins. And if you had followed me all year, I was talking about the Minnesota Twins being important because in the very beginning of 2017, there was a whole lot of stuff going on. They announced that Beyonce was having twins and there was these twin astronauts. And then my girlfriend found out she was pregnant with twins and then had a miscarriage. And then a few months later, she cracked open an egg with a double yolk in it. That supposedly means that you're going to get pregnant with twins. And, I was following all of this stuff. But look at my old drummer's name, Jesse Robert Grandstrom. His name equals 261. If you take out his middle name, it equals 195 and 183. And if you write out Minnesota Twins, 183, 195. And I knew this was important because of this, right? And earlier in the day, before making this blog post about Wendy's, the first post that came up when I went to Facebook was a post by my old drummer. And I haven't talked to him for a long time, or let alone even seen any posts by him on Facebook. So it was odd that the first one I saw was him. And then when I started thinking about this twin symbolism again, I was like, that's interesting that would come up, and it's connected to Wendy's. And in Minneapolis, after they burnt down the AutoZone store, they burnt down a Wendy's right next to it, right? They burnt down the Wendy's. And what, like a month ago or something, my SUV broke down. It started smoking when my girlfriend took it to Council Bluffs, Iowa. And it just so happened to break down in the Wendy's drive-thru. What are the odds of that, right? The Wendy's drive-thru. Now this guy, Rayshard Brooks, he falls asleep at the Wendy's drive-thru and then gets killed by the police officers in Atlanta, Georgia. Keep in mind that the last time the Minnesota Twins won the World Series, they beat the Atlanta Braves in 1991. Also, the year after this Twins symbolism, that was the year that Super Bowl 52 happened, and Super Bowl 52 was the one that was in Minneapolis, and it was important to Colin Kaepernick kneeling and Donald Trump calling out the NFL for kneeling, and it was also important to bridge symbolism. That's why, a month after the Super Bowl, there was the bridge collapse at the FIU campus, just as I had talked about forever. And it was on the Ides of March, which is the same day as the 44th mayor of San Francisco's 44th birthday. And he became the mayor 4 months and 4 days before the anniversary of the 81st anniversary of the Golden Gate Bridge opening up. That Minneapolis bridge collapse happened on 8/1, and it fell 81 feet, and they said the main trusses were 81 meters long, and it took them 81 minutes to transport everybody to the hospital, right? And Golden Gate Bridge equals 81. It was the 81st anniversary. It was all kinds of 81 stuff. It was synced up to Pope Francis as well, and Pope Francis is the first Jesuit pope. And right now with coronavirus, it's all synced up to the number 201 and synced up to the Jesuits. It's really important. And if you go back to 2017, all of the Minnesota Twins stuff, the whole reason I thought that the Minnesota Twins were important was because of the Jesuits and priests, right? Because before Super Bowl 51, where Atlanta was in, my uncle had died in a mysterious car crash, and this other guy started mocking my blog, and then Zach's house got crashed into. And then later, Montegraph made that video talking about the number 166, and it was 166 days after my birthday, and my uncle's name equaled 166, and I found out his birthday on 166 days after his birthday, and his wife was named Betty, right? Betty and Barney, like the Flintstones, and the Flintstones aired 166 episodes. The guy who mocked my blog, his name was James Jumper, and in reverse gematria, his name equals 166, and he referred to me as Nad on there. He called me Nad, my name in reverse, and this is before we knew reverse gematria. We learned reverse gematria just after that, right? And what are the odds his name equals 166? Just craziness. And I'm bringing all this up because when my uncle died, he died at the age of 63, and he was a Knight of Columbus. And I thought this was interesting that he died at the age of 63, and also being a Knight of Columbus because his father, who I didn't know because he died before I was born, his birthday was 10/12, October 12th, which is Christopher Columbus Day, right? Think about the Knights of Columbus. My uncle was a 4th degree Knight of Columbus. He also, on his obituary, it said that he knew, I can't remember what the senator's name was, Senator Ben Nelson, I think. Or maybe he wasn't a senator, the guy in Nebraska. He's something in the government, right? My uncle said he was good friends with him on his obituary, right? But moral of the story, my uncle, I knew there was something important to the Jesuits and how the Jesuits were synced into this. The number 63 of him dying was important because there was a priest in my town at one time named Father Paul, and he was a Jesuit, and he just so happened to die on the Jesuit University or Jesuit residence at Creighton University, right? And he died in a bathtub 6 months and 3 days at the age of 63, but 6 months and 3 days after the Jesuit anniversary. And then I started looking at all the priests that I had and when I was a kid, and they all equaled 63 or something about it was the number 63. And like Father Fred, he died on the 63rd day of the year and stuff like that. But when I was a kid, there was another priest named Father Howard, and we always said he was a child molester and he did some really creepy stuff to me. And there's always been this inside joke that he molested me. And in 2014, on the date of 6/30, a lot like a 63, it actually came out that he really was a child molester and he had molested some kid. And then Pope Francis kicked him out of the church when he was 63 years old. So I was following all this stuff with the Jesuits, and I knew that somehow it was synced up to the Jesuits, right? And there was a space theme going on as well. I talked about how there was a space theme and how it was synced up to Eugene Cernan. And then Eugene Cernan died like a month later. And then I talked about how Don Rickles was important and the death of Eugene Cernan. And then Don Rickles died like 2 months after Eugene Cernan died. And I was following the space theme. Then Isaiah Thomas, the basketball player, his sister China had died in a Toyota Camry, and the word Camry means crown. Keep in mind that the word Corona also means crown. And she died in a car that looked exactly like my girlfriend's car. Then it even had a smashed in front end, and we had hit a deer with it, so our car looked exactly like this car that she died in. Her name was China. China was ramping up their space program, you know. Even years later, they landed on the dark side of the moon, supposedly, during the government shutdown over the wall and stuff. But I was following this big narrative with the Houston Rockets. I thought maybe the Houston Rockets were going to win the NBA Finals and so on. And I'm bringing all this up because all of this has came back up again. You know, we had the Daryl Morey tweet with China just before coronavirus and so on. I've made videos on this, but after this, I started noticing like there was this twin symbolism as well. And my girlfriend was pregnant with twins. And Isaiah Thomas also lost a tooth a few games later. And it was the same tooth that my girlfriend had lost earlier in the year. Like she lost this tooth right here. And Isaiah Thomas, that same exact tooth got knocked out. So I knew there was something important to my girlfriend. And she was pregnant with twins. And I kept seeing all this stuff with twins. And so I started looking at the Minnesota Twins. And on May 30th, that year of 2017, which was the 150th day of the year, I had this crazy synchronicity with Catholic priests. The weekend before, I was at a party at my old 6th grade teacher's house over here. There's a little bonfire or whatever, and they started talking about Father Howard molesting me and whatnot, and how I need to watch this movie called Spotlight. And I had whatever. On May 30th, I went to watch the movie, but my daughter was awake, and I was sitting upstairs next to the bed because she always wanted me to be up there while she went to sleep. And whatever cartoon she was watching, it got over, and trying to remember this. It got over, and she wanted me to turn on a different cartoon, and I turned on the guide on the TV, and I saw that South Park was on, and I was like, it's probably not appropriate for her to watch South Park, whatever, and she hated it anyway, and I turned it there as a joke, you know? And when I turned it there, I noticed that it was the episode about Catholic priests molesting kids. And I was like, I'm just getting ready to watch the movie Spotlight. It's like loaded up on my computer. All I have to do is push play. And that movie is about molesting priests, right? And so I went and looked up this episode of South Park, and it just so happened to be the 87th episode of South Park, and it was called Red Hot Catholic Love. And in gematria, Red Hot Catholic Love equals 87. Interesting, a 195. Holy cow, I never noticed that, but interesting. I've been seeing this number like crazy, but 87, right? And it was the 87th episode. It was the episode about Catholic priests molesting kids. Look what the word priest equals. The word priest equals 87. The movie Spotlight is about the 87 priests that molest kids in Boston, right? And after I had made that blog post, my friend Pam had called me, and it was late at night. It was like 2 in the morning, but she was like out partying or something, and she called me exactly 87 minutes after I started writing that blog post. And her name equals 87, right? What are the odds of this? So anyway, I knew there was something important. You know, my uncle was synced up to the Jesuits. Then I'm having this synchronicity with the Catholic priests and so on. And a couple weeks later, the big story in the media just so happened to be the USS Fitzgerald crashing or whatever, right? USS Fitzgerald. Father Howard, who supposedly molested me, his name was Father Howard Fitzgerald, right? And pretty sure his name, can't remember with the father in front of it or not. We'll look. No, it's just Howard Fitzgerald. Would you believe his name equals 87? He was the priest, right? The priest that we have right now, his name is Joel David McNeil. Look at his name, 87. What are the odds of this, you know? Anyway, moral of the story. All of this happened on the 150th day of the year. And, you know, I thought it was interesting that the word World Series in reverse gematria that we had learned earlier in the year equaled 150. And it also equals 147, and this day was 147 days before the World Series began. And I knew there was something important to the Jesuits and something important to the twin symbolism going on. And, you know, I noticed that if you write out Minnesota Twins, it equals 84, just like the word Jesuit equals 84. And the Minnesota Twins also had won the 84th World Series over the St. Louis Cardinals, I think it was. It was the Cardinals, whatever they are. The Cardinals, right? Reminding us of the Catholic Church, kind of. Cardinals. And it was the 84th World Series. So I started looking at other teams that might be connected to the Jesuits, right? Minnesota Twins were. I also pointed out the New York Yankees were another team that I was following from the beginning of the season that year. New York Yankees equal 191 and 187. Just like if you write out Society of Jesus, right? And the Jesuits are the Society of Jesus and so on. And the other team I mentioned in this mix of everything was the Tigers, right? Tigers equal 84. And what are the odds that if you come and watch my YouTube videos, I am telling you, I have made so much stuff about the word tiger and how there's a huge tiger theme going on right now in light of coronavirus and whatnot. The word tiger equals 201, right? And this number is really big with the Jesuits as well. Pope Francis's name equals 201. The guy who founded the Jesuits equals 201. They were once saved by Catherine the Great from being completely wiped out, basically. And she saved 201 Jesuits. It's this big old number. There was event 201 that Bill Gates held 56 days before patient zero and coronavirus. Coronavirus equals 56. Toilet paper 56. Anthony Fauci 56. You know, so does Society of Jesus equals 56. The word Pope equals 56. There's a lot of stuff going on with it. But Jorge Mario Bergoglio, the Pope, his name equals 201. So it's just interesting. Let me pull it up for you really quick. I've talked about the tiger theme like no other, you know. The last so many videos I put out, they had all to do with tiger, right? So it's interesting, you know, that let me pull it up here, because I was just looking back through all of my old information about twins, and the only other team I talked about was the Tigers. Tigers 84. The Twins' final game was against the Tigers because they're in the same division. So, I don't know. I just find that interesting. And then what even happened was, so I followed the Twins and the Yankees and talked about how it's synced up to the Jesuits. The Philadelphia Phillies were also synced up to the Jesuits. And we had the death of Darren Daulton that summer too. It was 113 days after Zach had blogged about it. And he was important to the Houston Astros. His name equaled the same as Houston Astros, and the Astros went on to win the World Series that year. The 113th World Series. Think about how Zach posted about it. 113 days before Darren Daulton, this guy important to the Astros. And so on. But the wild card game ended up being the Twins and the Yankees, right? And the Yankees beat them 8-4. What are the odds of that? Jesuit 84 and so on. So there's a ton of Jesuit stuff. The Price is Right was really big that year too. I randomly saw this thing about the guy who got the perfect showcase on The Price is Right on Facebook, and I blogged about it or whatever, and then, what was it? I'm trying to think what day it was. The day before the Las Vegas shooting, the guy who got the perfect showcase on The Price is Right, named Terry Neese, had reached out to me, and he said I can't remember what it was. He had lived in Rosebud, or something to do with Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Dakota, or North Dakota, one of the places. There's something to do with that, and I can't remember. He lived there, or he had some connection to that, and that's where Bob Barker grew up, the host of The Price is Right. And that's also where Father Paul, the Jesuit priest in my town who died at the Jesuit University Creighton, had spent a lot of his years as a priest, right, on that reservation. But I should point out, too, my uncle also died at Creighton University. That's another reason why I thought it was connected to the Jesuits, right? And that his car crash makes absolutely no sense. The same day that he died, I got a letter in the mail with $300 in it, basically telling me that I should just believe in God and quit making videos and stuff. So it's just interesting, right? I'm losing my train of thought. But I guess just the moral of the story is that, it's interesting how all of these things are connected to the Jesuits. And then we get this George Floyd thing. And by the way, his name equals 201 as well, too. George Perry Floyd equals 201. And the high school that he went to, I've been having some synchronicity with the movie with John Henry. And I made an error on this blog, and then somebody pointed it out or whatever. Who knows? But when I went back and re-looked it up, I meant to write that he went to high school. He graduated high school in '93, but I wrote that he was born in '93. And I went back to make sure of that, and I noticed that the high school was actually named after a guy named John Henry something. And when I looked him up, he died 201 days after his birthday, that high school that he went to. And George Floyd, he was from Houston, right? And he was even, some of the pictures they showed, he was even wearing a Houston Rockets hat, right? And the Minnesota Timberwolves, they were the last game that they played before coronavirus suspended this NBA season, just so happened to be against the Houston Rockets. And then the Rockets are going to play the Lakers the next game or whatever and then it got suspended. And the Lakers are originally from Minneapolis. And, there's a whole bunch of interesting connections to the Houston Rockets with the George Floyd thing. So I'm actually really dumbing this video down, but I just wanted to make a quick video kind of explaining some of the stuff that's going on. But my drummer, his birthday is 195 days before this story comes in the news too, right? The story about the Wendy's burning down, 195. You remember Minnesota Twins equal 195. His name equals 195. There's all these stories with India, and I've been calling this out like crazy too. Talked about how there's something important to India, then all of a sudden India's in the news like crazy. There's a hurricane or typhoon there or whatever. Then all these Bollywood people are dying left and right. Some Bollywood guy died today. India also equals 195. Houston, Texas equals 195. Rockets equal 195. So I did a video back in like March with Simple Truth TV, that video actually got deleted because his channel got deleted, but I talked all about this number 195 in it. So interesting. It's also why the MLB owners, this is also why they want to have they want to have baseball come back again, but they want it to be done by September 27th, which is the Jesuit anniversary, right? But you know what I forgot to talk about? So The Price is Right. That's where I was going with this. The Price is Right. That guy reaches out to me, and he just so happens to be from Las Vegas, and he reaches out to me the day before the Las Vegas attack. And on the Jesuit anniversary, I was saying all year there's something important to the Jesuit anniversary. We're going to get some type of big event that is going to happen around the Jesuit anniversary, if not on the Jesuit anniversary. And somebody from Las Vegas called me, and then when I answered, nobody was there or whatever. Only phone call I got the whole day, it was from Nevada, right? So on the Jesuit anniversary, I get a phone call from Nevada. Then the guy from the guy who gets the perfect showcase on The Price is Right reaches out to me the day before the Vegas attack, and then he's from Las Vegas or Henderson, Nevada, which is right there. When he was on The Price is Right, he even had a shirt that said Las Vegas on it. Remember, and then my grandma died just before that, like 3 days before the Jesuit anniversary. My grandma died, and I found out she was from Flintstone, Georgia. She always told me she was from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Well, Flintstone, Georgia's like 10 miles away, right? Flintstone, Georgia, and earlier in the year, my uncle had died, and his wife was Betty, and it was all connected to the Flintstones. My Aunt Lorraine just died on April 22nd, and I talked about my uncle Barney, his wife died too. Betty actually died this year, right after the Super Bowl. And everybody was pointing out that Simpsons episode who predicted the 49ers to win the Super Bowl, but that episode was actually season 10, episode 12 of The Simpsons, and that was the year of Super Bowl 33, and that team was actually the Falcons, if you watched the episode. And I talked about this episode before my uncle had died, or right around the time my uncle had died, because of Christopher Columbus discovering America on 1012, and I looked at the book of Daniel, that's where the angel Gabriel tells Daniel to not be afraid, and he's come to help him with his wanting to knowledge, basically wanting to understand his visions and so on, right? And then that's why it was also important to my girlfriend, because she was pregnant or whatever, and I talked about how the angel Gabriel in the Bible only goes and sees Zechariah, Daniel, and Mary. And after I mentioned all of this, then some lady calls into the gematria effect named Mary and says that Montegraph was after her, and he's trying to get her pet pigs, and she kept calling him a pig. And I'm sitting next to two stuffed animal pigs while this is going on, that my daughter called her pets before she went to bed and told me to watch her pet pigs, right? So big Gabriel theme going on too, and that was connected to why I knew my girlfriend was important, and then how I knew the twins thing was important. I know it's a lot of information. It's hard to explain sometimes. That's why I've tried to write it all in a book and organize it and make sense, but my brain's about ready to explode, you know? Anyway, let's just look at a few more things. It's like super hot out here. It's out in my garage, but you know, in regards to Wendy's too, like it's been super windy outside. I don't know if that's connected, but like right now it's super windy, and just there's been tons of days like in the last couple weeks where I've noticed that it's just been absolutely windy, like literally like crazy. I had to DJ a party out in the country, and they had a slip and slide that I did, and I didn't have any dry clothes, but it was so windy out I was dry in like an hour. But I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm just thinking about it because it's super windy out again, but maybe that's not even connected. But Wendy's was founded 50 years ago, and twins equal 50. Twins also equal 85, like Atlanta, Georgia. And remember, the Twins last won the World Series by beating the Atlanta Braves. And I think that was the 88th World Series. They played the Tigers 88 days before that World Series. And this is important because Colin Kaepernick and kneeling and all of that, it's important to the George Floyd stuff, right? And the word kneel equals 88, the Star Spangled Banner 88, Colin Kaepernick 88, you know, Trump equals 88. That Super Bowl that was held in Minneapolis was held during the 88th anniversary of the stock market crash at US Bank Stadium. US Bank Stadium equals 88. And that's why the day after that Super Bowl, the major headline was market meltdown, and the stock market had dropped a whole bunch of points or whatever, because it's all connected to this. The guy who signed into Herbert Hoover, the only president from Iowa, HH, an 8 and an 8, he's the guy who signed into Congress that the official national anthem would be the Star Spangled Banner, and so on, right? So, just important. It's, you know, George Floyd died 93 days before the anniversary of Colin Kaepernick originally kneeling, which is also James Harden's birthday, the Houston Rockets player. But what was it? Minneapolis equals 93. Colin Kaepernick, his full name, Colin Rand Kaepernick equals 93. The lady who filmed the George Floyd video, her name equaled 93. You know, all about 93. Think about Martin Luther King. His name equals 93, so does Malcolm X, and so on, right? Big, important number. Also, too, when I had that priest synchronicity, when I'm thinking about it, the priest synchronicity on the 150th day of the year, if you go and look up the baseball games that day, the Minnesota Twins actually played the Houston Astros that day, and the Cardinals played the Los Angeles Dodgers, and then the Astros went on to beat the Dodgers in the World Series, right? And you know, I was talking about the Cardinals and the 84th World Series, important to the Twins. The Cardinals played the Dodgers and the Twins played the Astros on that day. I had that crazy synchronicity with Catholic priests and so on. The Jesuit theme in 2017 was also really important to North Korea. And the number 312, the Korean War lasted 3 years, 1 month, and 2 days, 312. And Kim Jong-un, he just so happened to become the leader of North Korea on Pope Francis's birthday. And Kim Jong-un's birthday is 3 months and 12 days after the Jesuit anniversary. That's why this year they told us the story about him possibly being dead 3 months and 12 days after his birthday. And can't remember it all. I have to look. The word Pope equals 312 in Sumerian gematria. And I think it's Jorge Bergoglio, maybe? Yeah. Pope Francis's full name also equals 312. And that year was like, can't remember what it was. It was important to the Jesuits. It was like the 477th year of the Jesuits. If you write out 477, it equals 312. And there was all kinds of stuff with the number 312 with the Jesuits. It was synced up to North Korea. So I'm just pointing this out. You know, Kim Jong-un makes his appearance on May Day, which is the anniversary of the Illuminati. And then this Rayshard Brooks guy gets shot on the date of 6/12, which is the anniversary of Donald Trump meeting Kim Jong-un, right? The word war equals 42, World War equals 42, Kim Jong-un equals 42. Think about May Day, right? May Day, May Day. Kim Jong-un made his appearance 42 days before 6/12. Pretty sure that's why in the movie The Campaign with James Franco and Seth Rogen, James Franco's wearing that tiger shirt. It's all about this, and I talked about how it's synced up to JFK and so on, and then Kim Jong-un actually referred to himself as the Korean JFK and all kinds of stuff. So, you know, and remember that JFK was the first Catholic president. He was the 35th president. The word Catholic equals 35. He died 144 days after meeting the Pope. And then Donald Trump, when he first became president, he met Pope Francis on the 144th day of the year, just after visiting the Western Wall. And it was his 4th month and 4th day as president. If you write out 44, it equals 144. It's like Abe Lincoln died on 14/4 and had a dream 10 days before on 4/4 that he was going to get assassinated. Pretty sure that's why Marilyn Monroe sang to JFK 10 days before his actual birthday. And JFK's brother gave the speech in Roseburg, Oregon. What was it, 10 days before he died? And then in 2015, we got that shooting in Roseburg, Oregon that was all synced up to it. It was on the same day as the Las Vegas shooting that happened in 2017, so, which is also Jimmy Carter's birthday. It's the day leaving 91 days in the year. So, I'm just going to leave it there. Like I said, I've blogged so much stuff. If you want to know more, just come to my blog and like literally read through some of this stuff. But my Aunt Lorraine also died. I don't know if I talked about that. I feel like I started talking about that. But my Aunt Lorraine died synced up to my Aunt Betty. I did talk about this, but my Aunt Lorraine's name equals 201. And her last name's Houston, right? That, you know, reminds us of Houston. And I had this crazy synchronicities with Zoe Disney Channel or whatever, Day Channel or however you say her name. And it was all about the number 201. But, I don't know, I'm just trying to think here. Her name equaled 201, and I had this synchronicity while she was in the University of Nebraska Medical Center. Or I can't remember what hospital it was. I don't know. I can't remember. I know it equals 201. It's the hospital where they sent the Diamond Princess people that's in Omaha. But I don't know. I just find it interesting. I talked about how she was going to die in connection to Kobe Bryant, and then she ended up dying on 4/22, which was the 113th day of the year this year. It was also 4 months and 1 day before Kobe Bryant's birthday. And, you know, if you read out Kobe Bryant, equals 113, 41. So she dies on the 113th day, 4 months and 1 day before Kobe Bryant's birthday. Her birthday was November 3rd, 11/3, and she died at the age of 58. You know, and then her name equals 201. Kobe Bryant supposedly went to the Catholic Church before he died in his plane crash and so on. Lorraine Houston looks like Houston. Talk about how Kobe Bryant synced up to the Houston Rockets with Dwight Howard being back on the team. Actually talked about Dwight Howard even possibly going there before it was even remotely even mentioned because of DeMarcus Cousins going there. So lots of stuff going on. I'm going to try to finish this book before July, and then my aunt's she just retired. She's an English teacher, so I'm going to see if she'll like proofread it because I'm terrible with run-on sentences. I don't know how to put commas. That's like probably my biggest error, and I can spell like no other, but when it comes to figure it out, when you're trying to tell a story like I'm talking right now, it is so hard I went back, like, oh man, does that need a comma? Or can I word this in a different way to make it not have to have a comma? It's just so much work for me. So after that, I don't know. Then we'll get it out. It's no big deal. I just really want people to see this narrative. Maybe it'll be easier to understand if they have a book, and they don't have to sit here and listen to me. They'll have this visual. They can kind of read through it and be like, wow, that is some crazy stuff, and it's a lot more organized, I think. But moral of the story, once again, I'm talking about Wendy's. I knew Wendy's was important, and here we are, Wendy's shooting like less than 24 hours after I blog about it, and happens all the time, but, people around me still think I'm some crazy conspiracy theorist, so it's just so ridiculous, but have a good one. Peace.